Alright guys, hello Riven mains and Yasuo mains alike. I am the Nightwing Way of Life Esports coming at you guys with another League of Legends video, and I'm finally going to be giving you guys my power rankings for the LCS 2020 Spring Split. So there's been quite the bit of changes for the North American LCS. We have Academy Rush. The LCS is now going to be on 3 days a week. That's going to be pretty exciting and pretty interesting as well. I mean, looking at all these rosters and a lot of these moves that these teams have actually made, some are pretty good, some are actually really bad, and my rankings goes as follows: 10 through 1. Starting off, let's scratch this off with Golden Guardians is my 10th place team. I think this comes as no surprise to anybody. Golden Guardians' new roster is Hanser top, Closer jungle, Golden Glue mid lane, ADC is FBI, and Keith support. I just don't really see this team really having a lot of star power. This team doesn't really have a lot of good individual pieces to really make a run for at least even playoffs. Maybe if all the other teams just completely start performing so bad, maybe Golden Guardians has a shot at, actually getting to playoffs, but the only real strong laner they have is Hanser, and outside of that, I think that Golden Glue is not that bad a mid laner, but can he really stand up to the other great quality mid laners that we have, obviously, in the North American LCS at the moment? I'm just not too sure, and the game is really built on having a strong mid and jungle duo, and Closer and Golden Glue have not even played together once, so it's going to be pretty hard for them, obviously, to, really find that footing. I think that Keith's support is pretty troll, not gonna lie, but maybe he actually will be a good support, and, when he gets to go to other teams, he can be, obviously, a flexible player that they might want to, obviously, pick up. But even with that, you have to realize that that doesn't really mean much to a lot of teams. They kind of just want a player for that one position. That's how most people kind of see it. But, if someone's going to offer you a starting LCS position, I mean, kudos to him. You can't say no, because no one in their right mind would. But I just don't really understand the pick here. They wanted to get Hakuho or Vulcan. That fell through. And I just can't imagine that there wasn't any person that they could pull. Like, Oceanic supports. There's, LEC supports. There's LCK supports. There's just all the regions. There could have been anybody they could have chosen, but they just chose to play Keith support. I just don't think that this will work out long term. I think that, potentially for the summer split, when they don't really do too well in this split, I think that they're just going to move Huhi up to the main roster, because, I mean, to be fair, he has been playing support for a lot longer, and that also goes to show you too is that they weren't even confident that freaking Huhi was good enough. So they were like, okay, Huhi, you played support already. You almost got us in a academy win, but no, let's just play Keith support over that. I think that this roster is just the weakest on paper. They have like one good player, and Hanser is a great individual player. I just don't think that it's really gonna matter at much, because having one good player is not gonna really 1v9 like it used to do, obviously back in the day. But yeah, Golden Guardians are at 10th place for me. Coming in at number 9 is everybody's favorite return / disappointment, Immortals. Immortals are my number 9 pick. If you guys haven't been following for the offseason, and that goes for all my teams, I will be going down the rosters just in case anybody has not been following the offseason. And that goes for literally, a lot of people, because sometimes, it's super hard to, really follow all the offseason news, because there's just so many moves between all the major different regions. So I understand. But back to the topic at hand. Top lane is Soaz. Yes, FNC's Soaz. And Misfits is, failed super team Soaz. Xmithy, Aika from Elements way back in the day. Altec and Hakuho. This roster could easily be 10th place, because there is just not a star player in pretty much any position. And the reason why I emphasize the star player point is that having a star player will push your team to that next edge. I think that players like Xmithy and Soaz are great at what they do, but they're not the take over the game carry level players that we've seen for all these years. And I haven't seen Ica play since 2016. I have seen him play kind of small leagues, which is what the EU calls it. It's like their academy system for all their little backup leagues. I've seen him play a few games in that, but I wasn't really impressed by those, and I just don't think that this move really makes too much sense. I think that they could have just went with Pole Belter. If they went with Pole Belter, they would have had Xmithy and Pole Belter, who have already previously played together and won championships together, but they chose to just go with Ica because he was one of the first people who responded to them. Like, who's making these decisions? Altec has not played since 2018 when Echo Fox had those roster locks where they basically kicked off Altec and Adrian when that was a bot lane, and I just don't think that Altec will have the level of play that a lot of people are actually anticipating from him. He was more of a cleanup ADC, not a take over the game AD carry. And then you look at Hakuho, which I think Hakuho was a top 4 support in the NALCS. It was just that on Echo Fox, which was already a dumpster fire, basically, literally on fire behind the scenes. I just don't think that, that is really his fault personally, but Hakuo being pretty much maybe their best player isn't really gonna put this team on the map. Though this team does have a lot of good pieces, this could be the team with basically the veteran players that are and have shown they can be really good. But the issue with these veteran players is that these veteran players have never been the players to really take over. You know what I mean? They've never been the veteran players to really actually make a game turn on its head. And I just don't think that this roster has what it takes to really even punch up for playoffs. I think their highest possible placing is going to be like 7th, but that is obviously, why you do power rankings for the preseason, because, you get to actually debate and talk about all these teams' weaknesses and strengths, but you're also factoring in what do they really do. I think that their level of play is going to be something like they like to scale, they like to, obviously wait for mid-game skirmishes. I think that, their level of players don't really want to do anything early on to the point where it's going to be not really sufficient enough to really make a difference. So, yeah, they're my number 9 pick. It's going to be Immortals. All right, number 8 for me is going to be FlyQuest, actually. So, for a lot of people, this is probably going to be a little bit too low for them, but I still don't fully understand what FlyQuest really does during every single split, to the point where they always seem to crash and burn. And their issue is that they always crash and burn, or they're super inconsistent. So their actual roster is Viper, Centauran, Power of Evil, and Wild Turtle and Ignar. Ignar came over from Schalke, and then you have Power of Evil, who came over from CLG, and then you have the core of the roster from last year in Wild Turtle, Viper, and Centauran. Viper was super lackluster at the back end of the summer split, but had a pretty decent spring split. Centauran goes through this phase where he's like, TSM Centauran, or he's like an actually good jungler Centauran. He's just super inconsistent. I know people want to say he had a really good, 2019, but he really didn't actually. The summer split, he was atrocious. Like, he was just bad. And looking at this roster, they usually always, this is always what they do. It's inconsistently, every single split they do this. They start off really, really strong because they have players that gel very quickly, and they don't really always have the best players in every single position, but that's good enough to beat everybody below them that has not synergized yet. Once the better teams with the better players finally click, they usually always do bad. It happens every single split for them. That's always been what they've went through. It's never actually changed because they've never really put together that level of roster. And, that might be due to a lot of other different reasons, but that's what I have to go off of because that's what I've seen for all these years. And looking at Power of Evil, who I think is their strongest player, is he enough to get them into playoffs? I think he actually can. And, this is my dark horse team of the split. I think they can punch up into the playoffs and probably make the playoffs. But this split since it's only going to have the top 6 teams, I just don't think they'll have what it takes. And, Wild Turtle hasn't really been that good for a while. It's actually been pretty bad if we're being completely honest with ourselves. Ignar, I think that he'll have to play toward the level of Wild Turtle, which I don't think will be that good for him. Then I also have an issue with the synergy with the team. I just don't think that Santorin and Power of Evil will have very good synergy. And I just think that the team is really not going to do as well as a lot of people are making out to be. This is like a roster that looks good initially when you actually hear the names and you're like, oh, that player is good, that piece is good, that piece is good, that piece is good. But then after that, you're thinking like, God damn, this looks like it kind of sucks. So, but the issue with their team and the reason why I have them above Immortals and Golden Guardians is because they actually have star players. Ignar can be a really good support, and Power of Evil has been really good at very specific points in the LCS, the EULCS in general, LEC is what they call it now. And I think that Santorin, if he can just come back to his spring form, will be pretty good. And Viper, if he gets Riven, they win. But Viper is not a flexible player, which I think is going to be a problem with them moving forward. But I think that this team is going to be a dark horse team. I do have faith in them to make the playoffs. It's just right now I have to put them in at my number 8th spot. All right, so 10th Golden Guardians, 9th Immortals, 8th FlyQuest. Who is my 7th place team? My 7th place team is Dignitas. So I know a lot of people are going to be like, really? Huni, Grig, Froggen, Johnson, and Afromu. I was thinking about this long and hard, and what I thought to myself, it finally clicked. I was like, why am I not sold on this team? I had to really think about it, and this is what I got. All of these players, except for Grig and Johnson, because we can't really rank Johnson, but I just can't imagine a rookie 80 carry being, well, at least for the LCS, just being that good to the point where it's going to really put them on the map. I just think that Huni, Froggen, and Afromu want to completely play the game way differently. Huni wants to play the game differently. He always likes playing carry-oriented top laners. He's very flexible, but these carry-oriented top laners make it so volatile that he doesn't really understand that the team has to focus on what he's doing. Otherwise, if you don't, and he gets put too far behind, he's just useless. Then you look at Froggen. Froggen is really individually good, probably like, what, the 4th, 3rd best mid laner, if he can actually really punch up to that level. Froggen is incredibly good. I don't know where people get this, that he's washed up. You're fucking stupid if you believe that. I don't know what level of mid laners you've been watching, but Froggen's actually really good. Froggen's issue is that he doesn't really see things past mid. All he sees is this mid lane. Alright, I stomped this guy. Alright, you guys did well? Alright, my team sucks. They all fed. They went 0-6 in lane. Well, the jungler dove them top and bot. Well, he's not that player that's been ready to completely go back to his, like, Bjergsen, Jensen days where he was, considered one of the best Western mid laners. I think that he is one of the best Western mid laners. It's just that he always seems to put himself on these weird whack teams that just don't really function with him. He's a great individual player. I think that he will be one of the best mids in this split coming up. I'm just not really too sold on the fact that Huni, Froggen, and Afromu all want to play the game the exact correct way. We've heard these guys multiple different interviews, multiple different videos when they were on those specific teams that they like playing the game a certain way. How is that going to work out? Let's say they start losing and Afromu's like, alright, we're going to play the game this way this week. They lose. Froggen's like, my way this week. They lose. Huni's like, hold on, my way this week. They lose. That's going to be a big conflict of interest. I'm just not really too sold on this team yet. I think that if you look at Grig, okay, we've seen Grig play. Grig is a serviceable, kind of just fits the team type jungler, right? Now, I know people say the thing with his smites, I really could care less about if you could smite good. Like, you're a jungler, you should be able to smite good at a competitive level. That's not a plus for you. That's like you should be able to do this. So, having this team and having who they have on the academy roster, this roster, if they start doing badly, could alternate between players. So I think that they are also with FlyQuest in the aspect of they could be a very good Dark Horse team, but I'm just not too sold on them actually being a good cohesive unit. And then you realize they just spent $2.3 million just to get probably 5th or 6th place in the LCS. But I do see them in summer possibly making the playoffs because, you know, the LCS has decided to extend your chances of going to Worlds to the 8th place and 7th place team, which is, like, really, really stupid, but who cares? Alright, so after Dignitas, we have 10, 9, 8, 7, and now it's time for playoffs. Time for the playoffs. Who is my 6th place team? My 6th place team is going to be the 100 Thieves, actually. So, I'm just kidding. You guys are nuts. I had you guys. You guys are tripping. My 6th place team, I'm being serious, is Evil Geniuses. So, Evil Geniuses are my 6th place team for a very specific few amount of reasons. So, Evil Geniuses team are Kumo, who was the backup on Cloud9, Svenskeren, MVP from Cloud9, Jizuke from Vitality, you have Bang, SKT Bang, World Championship Bang, who also was on 100 Thieves, and then you have Zeyzal, also from Cloud9. So pretty much you're looking at them like Cloud9 2.0. And though a lot of people left them because they, you know, wanted to go to this roster because they felt like they didn't like the situation that they were in on Cloud9. Hey, you know, shit happens. Sometimes after going through a lot of honeymoon phases with a lot of, you know, new orgs that a lot of these players go to, things happen with a point where you don't like them and then you want to leave. But looking at this roster of Evil Geniuses, you know, they have good individual pieces. They really do, actually. Zeyzal, I think, is not a strong laner, but, you know, can be a pretty good support in playmaking. He's also really good at the shot calling supports where you are literally the engage of your team. We've seen him play those really, really well. I call those shot calling supports for some reason because, you know, you kind of can tell where he's dictating how the team goes by the support that has to engage. You know what I mean? So, those engage supports, I think that he's really good at those. But I think he falters in other ways. Bang did not look good at 100 Thieves, but one bad year out of your career shouldn't really be a big detriment. Though, I am worried that Bang will end up being like another Piglet situation where he just bounces between so many teams to the point where maybe he's just too good to be true. I really hope that's not going to be the case. But Bang and Zeyzal's bot lane, I'm just really not too sold on that. In theory, if you really think about it, that sounds really bad. But it also could be a very serviceable bot lane that can punch up if it actually needs to happen. So, they have good strengths about this team. I'm just not too sure if they can really, more or less so, get it together when it really matters. Because I think that Jizuke and Svenskeren are equally around the same player. They like to get early games going. They like to, you know, do a lot of skirmishes. They like to obviously play these carry-oriented champions. But I'm just not really too sure what happens when they actually get into late-game situations. Like, you know, macro, I do feel like this team will struggle. This team has good pieces, but I think it's just good enough to the point where it gets you into playoffs. And in playoffs, since playoffs is obviously more games to play and you get to see how strong a team can be, this will most likely be a really strong team in the playoffs. But I think that for right now, I'm just really not too sold on it. And Kumo, you know, play games on Cloud9, was camped for by Svenskeren, and he was kind of still losing. But hey, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I think that people need to understand playing on the stage the first time is, you know, kind of just nerve-wracking for some players. He's played on the stage before, but that was during for Academy games, so I'm not really going to count that. But maybe he's not as strong as most people think he is, but if he can just be what Ruin is, that's a really good position for that team. They do have good individual pieces, but I'm just not really too sure it's going to really gel and click. I understand they have players from Cloud9. I understand that. But, you know, is that really going to be something that really makes that much a difference at the end of the day? Because if these weren't the really best individual pieces of Cloud9, besides Svenskeren, it's really not going to make a big enough difference to the point where it actually means anything. What I mean by that is, if you take the best individual piece like Svenskeren, and then you have the other individual pieces that were already kind of faltering at some point, doesn't really do much. And yep, that's it. I think that they are a playoff team. I think they have what it takes. They have good enough individual pieces. They have basically good enough players and a really good ADC. I also think that Bang is really good to get into playoffs. So Evil Geniuses are my 6th place team. Who is my 5th place team? 100 Thieves. Someday, Meteos, Ryoma, Cody Sun, and Stunt. Why are they my 5th place team? So, I actually had them at 4th. I actually had them around just about almost outside of playoffs, now that I really thought about it. But this team has good pieces. But I'm just not too sold on their bot lane. Cody Sun is not a strong individual laner, and so is Stunt. That is going to be a problem. Then, if you factor in what people were saying about them, you know, in the offseason, when they were scrimming in EU, they were getting destroyed by the EU teams. Now, that's not really much to really go about, because scrims are, you know, don't take too much stock into those, but, I mean, I do trust what the EU people were saying, and a lot of the EU casters, when they got the information, and when they said 100 Thieves were getting clapped, that is like a big alarm right there, because that means that they're still playing the exact same way that they have played every single split they have been a part of. Now, looking back at 100 Thieves, Someday, Meteos, and Cody Sun are good individual players. I think Someday is one of the best top laners in the league. Meteos could easily be MVP, was MVP before, and I think that you have Ryoma and Stunt, which hold down the team. I think that being held down really is going to hurt them, because having a weaker individual mid laner than all of the rest of the league, pretty much they have what is arguably the 2nd or 3rd worst mid laner, and then everybody else has such a good individual mid laner that it just makes up for the difference in their team. They don't have that. And Stunt, people didn't really like his ideas on the game. They didn't enjoy playing with him. So what if they start losing? They don't like playing with this guy, and they switch him out. There's all types of things that could happen for this roster. I think that this is going to be the team that people should be watching more closely than they actually might give it credit for. This is a team that easily could be in playoffs or be in like 7th place. That's how in the middle I am with them. It also just means that Meteos is going to have to play around mid and bot a lot more. Someday can be left on an island and do pretty well. He was actually considered an MVP, you know, back when he was a starter for 100 Thieves. So, yeah, I'm just not really sold they're going to be at the top upper echelon of the NALCS. But I think that they do have what it takes to be better than Evil Geniuses, due to most likely already playing together in most of their cohesive units. But we've already seen Meteos, Cody Sun, and Someday before, so I'm not really too sure if it's going to be anything different. It all but depends on if Ryoma and Stunt can really put 100 Thieves on the map. Alright, so that's my 5th place team. What is my 4th place team? Guess who? They really like to counter logic your gaming. CLG is my number 4 team. Ruin, Wiggly, Crown, Stixxay, and Smoothie. So, this team has a lot good going for them. Crown was our arguably 3rd or 4th best mid laner. Ruin was pretty good for most of the time he was in CLG so far, outside of those last few weeks and those few playoff games that he had. Wiggly started to come into his own. Stixxay and Smoothie, I think, will be a better bot lane than Stixxay and Bilefrost. Even though Stixxay and Bilefrost was looked at to be a pretty good individual bot lane, I'm just not really too sure that it really will make that big a difference to the point where a lot of other teams can overall just manhandle them in lane. Though I do believe that Stixxay and Smoothie will be one of the more better bot lanes and could punch up to be a top 4, top 3 bot lane, actually. I think that Smoothie leaving TSM is really good for him, because TSM just like to suck the talent out of all people. This happens consistently. Crown is really individually good. You also have the problems with them. If Crown cannot effectively talk to people that he is able to speak to on his team in moments notice, I'm not talking about sentences, I'm talking about in the moments notice where he has to say something, cannot really be a good thing. In the long term, that's going to cause some problems. I can't talk to this guy effectively, and it's not, and you're losing the game. Media's talked about that with Crown obviously before, so I don't think that with Wiggly it's going to make it anything different. But I do think that Crown is able to generate a lot of leads on his own. Ruin can play, weak side top laner super well. Wiggly, if he ganks for Ruin like he did last split, they'll have a lot of success. They have a lot of cohesive unit about their team that I like going in, and 6A is pretty good overall. I'd say he's more of a 5th place AD carry at the moment. He hasn't really been that superstar he was since the MSI 2016 days, but they have good pieces. I think this roster is really going to surprise people, and I wouldn't be too surprised if this roster made Worlds going into the latter half of this year. So yes, CLG is my number 4 pick. Who is my number 3 pick? Who is my number 3 pick? Cloud9. Yes, Cloud9 is my number 3 pick. Licorice, Blabber, Niski, Sven, and Vulcan. So, this is the reasons why I have them at 3rd, and I'll talk about the reasons why I don't have them above TSM or Team Liquid. So, Cloud9, mostly individually, do not have better players than TL or TSM. Cloud9 has consistently showed us throughout most of every single split, besides pretty much 2 splits I can remember, that they can have weaker players, and then they can mold these players into really good players that can take over the game and overall show the NALCS that we do have really good individual North American players. Vulcan showed he was really coming into his own on Clutch Gaming and at Worlds. Sven is the weak part about this team so far, but I think that moving forward, people will see that he is an upgrade over Sneaky. I've wanted Cloud9 to change up the roster for literal years at this point. You know what I mean? And I'm glad they are able to do that, because now I think that this team is going to surprise a lot of people. Cloud9 is actually coming in with quite a bit of lower expectations, but these individual players are strong. Niski can be really good at a lot of things that he does. I just think that he's not individually better than Jensen, Froggen, or Crown, but he's got a room to grow, and the way he plays the game, I overall understand what he's actually trying to do. And we saw him being able to contest Bjergsen, Jensen, Crown, and Froggen much later on during the split, and even in spring as well. So he's individually good for what it is. He's consistently fine for what they need, and that's good. You don't always have to have star players in every single position to make it where your team is just, overall much higher of the ceiling where it's not your job to carry them. I think that that's going to be more on a task of Sven and Licorice. I think that Blabber is their weakest part of the team. I don't know what people got in their freaking heads when they said Blabber has not played a full split yet. He pretty much has. Remember when Cloud9 went from 10th place to World Semifinals? He played on the roster from like week 6 after Rift Rivals all the way to week 9. So he's pretty much played almost a full split though. Like, let's not just, rewrite history because you want to rewrite history. That's not how it works there. You can't rewrite history. Go back and remember, unlock the brain you have, and remember, he almost played a full split. Now, if he can just... See, he's the weakest part about their team. And right now, the meta is dictated on mid-jungle synergy, having a good, strong jungler who can do a lot of things, even though the jungle position is kind of weak right now because of the way Riot has actually been, overall, making these changes to the game. Blabber is currently, I would say, one of the more weaker junglers in the league, but I think that being on Cloud9 will cover up most of his flaws if he's able to just play the way that he can. I think being super aggressive does have its benefits and does have its problems as well, but Licorice is, I think, one of the more better top laners of the league, arguably top 3, top 2 if you really want to put it up there. And yeah, they have a lot of good pieces about them. This team, I think, will function a lot better than the last year's Cloud9 roster actually did. Some people wanted to run back that roster. Nope, you didn't win. I don't want to run back anything. What if you run it back and you lose? People don't ever think clearly, and I hate that. What if you ran back the same roster and you lost again? That would just be a waste. I'm not into wasting my time. I want to try new stuff out if it doesn't work out, you know? And I love Cloud9, and I really hope they can win a split for spring and go to MSI. The only old org not to go to MSI. CLG, TSM, and TL have all been to MSI. It's Cloud9 who hasn't. So I really hope that they can, you know, obviously get to winning a trophy in the split. I'm their fan, but I gotta be realistic here, guys. They are the third place team for me. All right, who is my second place team? Good old Talent Suppression Machine, TSM. Broken Blade, Dardoch, Bjergsen, Kabe, and Bifrost. So, Broken Blade had a really bad summer. No, I didn't think it was really that bad though. I actually put Broken Blade in my All-Pro top laners, like a third place top laner. Though you could say Hanser was better, X-Person was better. I thought Broken Blade played individually fine. It just wasn't as good as a spring split. Pairing him up with Dardoch, I think this topside duo is going to be really incredibly strong. Dardoch is a good jungler. He's just mechanically insane when he can actually get going. And this is finally the team you can probably see him do that with. Bjergsen, one of the best, if not the best, mid laners in the league. He's going to have new pieces around him. They always rebuild around Bjergsen. It's always consistently happened. Bjergsen has always been their rock. And overall can carry games with a snap of his finger. He can consistently carry games no matter what. Also, you have, what's the bot lane? Oh, Kabe and Bifrost. I think that this bot lane is going to be a lot better than what people are saying it will be, but it won't be carry-oriented, lane-dominant bot lane. Kabe is good in mid-game. Bifrost is good at, obviously, dictating things early to mid-game. But this bot lane seems just in the same boat as the Evil Geniuses bot lane. The difference with this one is that they can actually speak to each other. That's the difference. And looking at how Bifrost once functioned on TSM, and he liked being there, I just couldn't imagine him not functioning properly now on TSM. But, I mean, it has been different since then, so let's see what is really going to obviously change with this TSM roster. I think that the reason why they are over Cloud9 is because they have the better individual pieces, and they actually, more or less so, if they could just get an early game lead like they were at some points against Cloud9, they were able to win, though that was always flipped from, you know, split to split. I think that you have to look at how TSM want to play the game. They're always trying something different out. No, they're not. They're usually too slow, or you know, last year they finally started playing early game, and then it just wasn't really as good as they kind of figured it out. They try to play a lot more differently. It's just a big, giant cluster frick of mess with them. But Bjergsen and Dardoch, best mid-jungle duo to me. Bifrost and Kabe, individually a top 3 bot lane. Broken Blade, individually could be third best top laner. And I think you have a really good, strong roster here. And first place, spoilers, is TL. TL is my first place team. I don't actually really know when they're going to get Broxa back because he has these visa issues, but I think that any team that faces TL without Broxa, good luck in getting lucky when you actually have to face him. Sorry, with Broxa. Sorry about that. So, I'll just say it again. There's teams that will face TL without Broxa, and teams that will face TL with Broxa. That's the difference here. Broxa. So the roster for TL is Impact, Broxa, Jensen, Doublelift, and Core JJ. Core JJ, individually best support, mechanically great, carries games. Doublelift carries games, mechanically great, instantly makes people want to ban him out. Same with Core JJ. Jensen could either be your second or third best mid laner. That's already a plus. Broxa, I don't know what people are. My brain. Sorry. I fumbled half my words. Sorry about that. Broxa, individually, has issues. But I think that with this team, it'll function a lot more better with them. If he can build a synergy with Jensen that he couldn't have built with Nemesis, you have a much better team overall. They want to build mid-jungle synergy because that is what the game has been entailing us. You pairing up with somebody else to make things happen. Impact, solid, rock top laner. Overall, never is going to be a reason why your team loses. Sometimes he can get super dumpstered. That is the reason why, you know, they can have the chances of losing a lot of games. I'm just not really too sold on just the Broxa move yet. I want to see how he functions with this team. I do think in the long run, it will be really beneficial to them. And they arguably, in every single position, outside of maybe top lane, have the third to fourth best player. I mean, they essentially still have a super team. And that's going to be way, way more impactful than all these other teams with weaker players in their positions. Now, when people are saying it's not going to be as easy for TL to win these next two splits, I do agree with that. It's not going to be as easy. But if they still win at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So that's it, guys. And that's for my LCS power rankings. I'll see you guys later. Like, comment, subscribe. Most of all, enjoy. I'm the Nightwing, and Way of Life Esports is signing out. Goodbye. List your power rankings for these teams in the comment section below.
Hi there, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more stuff.
Yeah, thank you.